This event took place during the time when Israel was no longer one nation. After the death of Solomon, a civil war split the country in two. There was a northern kingdom which did continue to be known as Israel, and there was a southern kingdom which was called Judah. Jerusalem was in Judah. And the two nations did not always get along with each other. Neither kingdom became a paragon of virtue or faith, yet there were periods of these, followed by times of corruption. At the time reported, the kings of Israel were not living according to Yahweh, to God's will. They were following after other gods, idols, and Ahaz of Judah did the same. He even made images cast for other gods and made offerings for them. He was so bad that we're told he made his sons pass through fire. Now that's the New Revised Standard translation. Other translations are more graphic. Ahaz made his own sons into burnt offerings for other gods. His fierce following of other gods was so great that he sacrificed made offerings on the high hills, on the hills, and under every green tree. As a punishment, says the historian, Ahaz was given into the hands of the king of Aram. But he was also given over to being defeated by Israel, here in the story also referred to as Samaria. Israel's army has killed a vast number, 120,000 people, and they took captive another 200,000. And they grabbed everything they could for booty and marched back to Israel. After all their trials and troubles, they were now triumphant. Then something unusual happened. A prophet met them. His name was Oded. Oded is not a prominently known prophet. He didn't write books that became scripture. He didn't have the fame of someone such as Elijah. The massive 4-volume Interpreter's Dictionary only gives him a couple of lines. But Oded deserves far more attention than that, if only for his courage. He met the victorious army. Facing a mob is not easy. A group mentality sometimes displaces the individual conscience, and this was not an army with the kind of discipline that modern militaries have. They were higher on their victory. After their own times of suffering and defeat, they now had 200,000 slaves to their credit, and all the booty they could carry. You can imagine the party they expected to have when they returned home. Then Oded steps up. Congratulations would have been an acceptable and comfortable message. A cheer of victory was surely expected, but Oded's face is disapproving, and he's ashamed of what they've done. He tells them the only reason they prevailed was because God let them do it. Judah had sinned, so God gave them to Israel. It wasn't because Israel's army had great warriors. It wasn't because Israel had suddenly become morally superior. This victory did not mean that God was favoring Israel. They were already in a bad situation because of their own sins. And what did they do? They charged out and became wholesale slaughterers. To compound their sins, they weren't finished. They intended to continue over and over to enslave the people of Judah and Jerusalem. These were Israel's kindred. They were kindred in blood, but Oded tried to make them understand that they were also kindred in their sinfulness. The people of Israel should forgive Judah. Why? Because Israel was also in need of forgiveness. Have some empathy. Feel your common humanity. This wasn't a case of wrongdoers choosing to stew in the pot together. Oded was offering the opportunity to become different, to turn back to the ways of God. Now, we don't know if the army was happy with this message. We don't know if they felt ashamed and if they wanted to do something about it. What the historian tells us is that other people came and backed Oded up. 4 chiefs of the Ephraimites stood up with Oded against the army that had come. They said, "You're not doing this. You're not bringing these people in here and making us even guiltier than we already are." There's another group whose names we don't know, because there was an assembly of people who'd come with Oded and the Ephraimite leaders. We only hear about them towards the end. These people stood there as witnesses to the event that took place. They had a choice of going either direction. They could support Oded or they could stick with the army. A mob of triumphant soldiers could have killed them, or at the very least they might have been expected to be pushed out of the way. But the words of Oded and the Ephraimites proved effective. The warriors turned over the captives and the booty. Even then, the leaders and the people with him could have taken a middle route. They could have freed the captives and walked away, but they didn't. There were some among the captives who were naked and helpless. The people clothed them with the booty. They gave the captives sandals. They gave them food and drink. They anointed it. That is, they spread oil upon their skin, which was vital for health and comfort in that arid region. Then they put the ill and the feeble upon donkeys and carried the captives back home. It's not hard to find stories of horrible things that happened in those times. In the midst of them, this story comes like an oasis. It's a green, lovely spot to give us refreshment and hope. These are people who represent the best of what it means to be human children of God. Their story reminds us that people don't always take the safe route to save their own skin at the cost of someone else, nor do they always take the quick profit. People can do the right thing. They can feel compassion for someone who has hurt them. They can forgive in the same way they want to be forgiven. People do walk the extra mile. In the midst of chaos and pain, in the midst of temptation, evil, and terrible struggle, these people grabbed hold of God to make hope and love into living realities. And so may our generation live up to their example.